Hey, welcome back to my channel Duct Tape Mechanic and to another episode of my series Free on Facebook, a series of videos in which I find things for free and show you how to repair them, recycle them, or repurpose them in another manner. In this video I got this newer style Whirlpool washing machine that's not spinning. So I'm going to give you 4 reasons why this might be happening, and if you find this video to be helpful, make sure you subscribe to my channel for more DIY and tinkering videos. So here's the machine in question. It's a Whirlpool machine. It's actually in great cosmetic condition, and it's only a couple of years old, I believe. But this video is going to be applicable to pretty much any sort of machine that's made by Whirlpool. So that includes Maytag, Amana, Kenmore, because this is the father brand to all of them. So basically, if you have a machine with these 6 LED lights right here, followed by a pause play button, this video is going to be applicable to you as well. So this is the same, pretty much same machine as this Maytag, as it has the 6 LED lights followed by the pause play button. This one's actually even old, a lot older than this one, maybe even 6 or 7 year difference. But yeah, so what's happening here is this machine is not spinning. So if you have a machine like this and it's not spinning, the first thing I recommend doing is going into diagnostics mode. I'm going to briefly cover how to do that here, but I'm going to save that in detail diagnostic mode for another video, as this video would be too long if I went into detail about all the intricacies of diagnostics, but it's going to be enough to get you by. So I'm going to go into diagnostic mode, and that's going to spit out an error code, and that's going to help us eliminate a lot of things that could be causing your machine not to spin. So going into this mode, it isn't going to automatically tell you exactly what's wrong, but it's going to allow us to use process of elimination to eliminate out a lot of different things. So let's get to that next. Okay, to put it into diagnostic mode, first we're going to do is counterclockwise 2 circles. Just pretty much going to reset it. Just go a couple more times. And then we're going to go to the right 3 clicks, back 1 click, then back right for another click. And so let's see what that looks like. So 1, 2, 3, left, right. And all of the lights should light up as they are right now. And that just tells us we have successfully done the sequence to get into diagnostic mode. All right. So once you reach this part where all of the lights besides the lid lock light is lit up, so 5 of the lights, you want to go one more turn, and so now you went one more turn clockwise, so now the done light is on. So that allows you to enter into diagnostic modes. So after that, just hit enter, and then all of the lights will start flashing, all 5 of the lights, except the only light that shouldn't flash is the lid lock light. So as you can see, all 5 of those are flashing. So that means we've entered the error code mode. So then we go one more click, and it'll allow us to read our first error code. So that's what we're going to be looking at here for this not spin issue. All right, so first what's happening is the first part of the code is that the sensing light is on, the rinse light is on, the spin is on, and the done is on. And that equates to F7. And I can break that down in another video how I got to the F7, but basically if your sensing light is on and your rinse is on, your spin is on, and your done is on, that's F7. So then the next blink is the done light is just on. That equates to E1. So if you have an F7 E1 code, and that's leading to your washer not spinning, then I'm going to break down 4 reasons why this may be happening. So I'm going to discuss the 2 main reasons first, then we'll move on to 2 of the little bit less common reasons, but they can definitely occur. And let's do that next. All right, so now we know that this washer not spinning and acting a bit weird is due to a basket speed fault. So what could be affecting the basket speed? So that's the type of thinking we need to think about when we're going on with figuring out what's wrong with this. And the first thing is the belt. So the belt attaches from the motor to the transmission pulley. So let's inspect that first. In order to do that, we need to lay the washer on its back. All right, so a broken belt is actually very common on these washers, and it can lead people to just throw out their washers just like that. So in order to get access to the belt, all we need to remove is the belt cover right here. And it's just 2 5/16 inch screws that hold it in. So up here, and 1 down here. As you can tell, our belt is attached and it's not broken, so that eliminates that. But if yours is broken, to replace this, all you have to do is slide it off the transmission pulley first, and then it'll come off the motor pulley. Then to install a new one, you just attach it to the motor pulley first, then slide it onto the transmission pulley. And they're about 10 or 15 bucks. So I would definitely look to see what the status of the belt is. If it's broken, go ahead and replace that. And that's a simple fix right there. But unfortunately, we're going to move on to the second most common reason. The second reason, and actually probably even more common than the belt, is the shifter actuator. And this little motor right here shifts the machine from agitate to the spin cycle. So depending on where it's broken, your machine may just agitate or it may just spin. And it also has an RPM sensor on it that allows it to monitor the speed of the basket. So that also correlates to the basket speed fault we're getting. So basically, if you take this off and you notice that the arm right here is physically broken, meaning it just way too much play, and you can move it down all the way down with just your arm, your finger right here. That means it's physically broken. This one's good. As you can see, there's no resistance. There's resistance when I try to push it down. So that part of the shifter is good, but it also has, as I just mentioned, an RPM sensor or a speed sensor on it right here. And that's how it monitors the speed of the basket through the speed of transmission. So that often fails, so this thing would have to be replaced. If you're getting this code, I would go look at the belt real quick, then I would definitely move on to this part, and that would be correlate to a speed sensor or a basket speed error as well. Now, how do you replace the shifter? It's quite simple. All you need to do is take off this green screw right here, then there's another green screw right there as well, and you just undo the wire harness right here, and then you just swap in a new one, and that should take care of a lot of the not spin issues. Between that and the belt, that probably covers about 80% of the non-spin issues on these machines. But unfortunately for us, I already tried swapping to another shifter, and our machine is still not spinning despite the other shifter. So we know our belt is good and our shifter is good. So next we're going to move on to the third reason, and that's a bad motor capacitor. Alright, so a motor capacitor is needed for the motor to run, because this is an induction motor, and induction motors that operate on single phase, aka what we have here in America, require a motor capacitor. So if you notice your machine's not spinning and it's making humming noises as well, or if it's agitating really weakly, then most likely it's the motor capacitor. And on this particular machine, it's a 5 microfarad motor capacitor, but it's either going to be it's a 50 microfarad motor capacitor, but it's either going to be a 50 or a 45 microfarad motor capacitor. And so I can show you a way to electronically test that as well. So, but to remove this, you want to be careful, because these things do hold charge. So first thing you want to do is go ahead and unplug from the connector here, and that's just pretty much going to pull out. And then after that, we'll show you how to twist this motor capacitor off. Basically, we're just going to stick a screwdriver back here and push up gently as we turn this thing counterclockwise, and it should pop right out. So before handling these motor capacitors, I do recommend discharging them. How do you discharge them? Well, you just got to short the two together. So here I got some 1000-volt insulated needle nose pliers. And so basically I'm insulated from the shock, if there was a shock, and then I'm just going to short the two leads together by touching them both like this, and that should discharge anything, so just for our own safety. Next thing we're going to be doing is checking the capacitance, or that's the ability of the capacitor to hold charge. And so charge is measured in microfarads. So if it's pretty much holds 50 microfarads plus or minus 10% microfarads, then so 45 to 55%, then that tells us that this capacitor is good. How we're going to do that? We're going to get our multimeter here and put it into capacitance mode. So that's this symbol right here, and we're just going to put that on both leads and see if we get a number between 45 to 55, and that will help us determine if our capacitor is good or not. So oftentimes people think their motor is bad, but it's just the capacitor that's bad. So it's gonna read a number right here, and we're getting a capacitance reading of 48.7 microfarads. So that's actually good, within the tolerance of 45 to 55. So we're gonna go ahead and eliminate the capacitor as the reason why our machine's not spinning, and it's going to lead us to the fourth reason, which is an obstruction in the basket of the machine itself. So another thing that could be causing the washer not to spin is if something is obstructing the movement of the basket. So it should rotate freely like this. So sometimes clothing can get in between the inner and outer tub, that little gap right there, and they can bind up the motor by binding up the tub. In this case, actually what was happening was this tub was not rotating all the way, and it would get stuck right here. And so I moved it back and forth when I was figuring out what was wrong with the washer, and I was able to free it up. But unfortunately, that's not going to solve the issue permanently. So what's happening on this particular one is that the tub is being prevented from moving freely because the bearings are bad. And the best way for me to show you is if you can actually hear them, the noise they make, the kind of roaring noise when I spin it, and it shouldn't make that. And at the end of this clip, I'll put another clip up of it actually in the spin cycle, and actually it'll sound like a freight train. And so if that happens, pretty much this part right here, they don't sell just the bearings, they sell the entire transmission assembly. So that's kind of a expensive part, and pretty much means that your washer may be done for. But like I said, just because it doesn't rotate doesn't mean the bearings are bad. It could also be that some clothing got in between the inner and outer tub, and I'll show you how to inspect that. We try to open up the lid here and try to rotate the tub, and it's not rotating, and you suspect that there might be some clothes in there. What you can do is you can remove this screw right here, this one here, and then this one up here. So those three screws, and then lift up the entire top of this, and they should lift up entirely, and that should give you access to the gap between the tubs, and you can remove whatever you need to. Alright, so with the screws moved to the back, I'm just going to pull this towards myself and then lift up on the lid. Originally trying to solve this issue, this tub would go about that much on each way, each direction, and stop. So initially thought there was something stuck in there, but I looked through these little gaps right here and I could find nothing. Then eventually I moved it back and forth a couple of times and it freed up. Then when I gave it a spin, it was kind of howling, so that's how I suspected that it was the bearings. But if that's not the case for you, and you try to move it to the right and left, and it just won't budge, go ahead and undo these tabs by just pulling up on this right here, and thus you're gonna have to go all the way around, and that will allow you to take this plastic cover off, and that will allow you to get a better view of the inner and the outer tub, and you can just reach in there and pull out whatever is stuck in there, and that should free up the motor. And so this is what I was talking about. Believe it or not, this does happen. Clothes do get in the gap between the inner and the outer tub right here, and it'll bind up the motor, and if it doesn't bind up the motor, it'll clog up the drain pump. So it does happen. I wish that was the case for this one though, but there's nothing in here, but it's just the bearings are howling like a freight train. Alright, as you can tell, it's spinning, but as you can also hear, it sounds like a freight train. Take a look. So I was able to free up the locked bearings, but essentially the bearings are bad on here, and unfortunately on this model it requires you to change the entire transmission assembly. So I'm not going to be able to revive this, but all is not lost. I'm going to pretty much scrap this whole thing for parts. So I'll be able to get the control board, I'll be able to get the motor, the clutch, the shifter, pretty much the lid lock. So it'll be use to revive other washers in the future, but this bearing issue on this washer is pretty much a really expensive and time consuming, depending on how much of the tub is seized. So it's not really worth it to do so, but that's how it goes sometimes. But if you found this video to be helpful, make sure you hit the thumbs up sign. I better go get some earmuffs.